missed my last video, but I was on a trip, and then since then I've gotten sick, and I lost my voice for about 2 weeks, so I wasn't really able to make a video, because beyond the voice I was still pretty sick and sleeping a lot, so. And I've been not as sick for a little while now, but today I did have a fever, so I'm hoping that all of this is going to go away soon. I'm not usually one to get sick, so it's kind of annoying and getting in my way of wanting to do what I want to do. Because I'm kind of finding trouble finding words to say for this, I'm going to be reading one of my favorite books. It's called The Great Good Thing by Roderick Townley. So hopefully we'll be getting some good paper noises for you. The Great Good Thing. Great Good Thing. A novel by Roderick Townley. For Wyatt and Grace. Table of contents. Part 1. Sylvie looks up. Chapter 1. Sylvie had an amazing life. She didn't get to live it very often. What good were potions and disguises if no one came along to scare you, or save you, or kiss you behind a waterfall? Week after week, nothing changed. A year went by. The sparkles on Sylvie's dress began to fade, and a fine dust coated the leaves, turning the green woods gray. Once in a while, it looked as though something might happen. The ground trembled slightly, then nothing more. People got used to these disturbances. King Walter scarcely noticed. He sat about playing cards with the goatherd. Even the wolves stopped lurking and just lay in the heat, panting like house dogs. It got so that one day Sylvie sat down on a stone at the edge of the lake and wept. "Come on," she whispered fiercely. "Come on, something happened." At that moment, a fan of light began opening in a corner of the sky, sending flashes of color across the water. Sylvie opened her eyes as the woods brightened. A breeze flew through the treetop, knocking against branches as it went. "Rock! Reader! Reader!" cried an orange bird, bursting into the air. "Book open!" groaned a bullfrog. "Open! Book open!" Sylvie sprang to her feet, excitement and fear catching in her throat. How far had she wandered? A distant trumpet sounded, and the forest echoed with clumping hoofs, flapping wings, shouting knights, fluttering dodgers, all racing to get to their places. Sylvie had the farthest to go, all the way to page 3. She knew the shortcuts between the descriptions and arrived, hot-cheeked, just as the shadow moved over the land and the face of an enormous child peered down on her. She didn't care for the look on that face. It was a boy with a pouty lip, but she could spare him no more than a glance. Her dialogue began right away. "Father," she said, "I cannot marry Prince Rigolov." Her father was breathing hard. He'd had to run in heavy robes from page 13. "Not marry Rigolov?" cried the king. Sweat stood on his pasty brow. "For heaven's sake, child, he is handsome, rich, kind, brave," continued Princess Sylvie. "Yes, I am aware of his qualities." "He has everything." "So have I," the girl replied, dodging around an illustration. "You don't have a husband." "Nor want one. I don't want anything," she said, her green eyes flashing. "Except," but Sylvie, who had arrived at the top of page 4, never got to say what it was she wanted. A gob of strawberry jam hurled from the sky and landed with a splot just 2 words in front of her, spattering her blue shoes. She looked up. The boy was biting into a peanut butter sandwich. He wasn't even listening. "Dumb story," he hummed, and without bothering to wipe away the jam, he slammed the book shut and tossed it. Well, Sylvie could only imagine that he tossed it, for she found herself and King Walter and all the courtiers spinning around, then bumping to a stop at a backward angle. They waved in the darkness. The boy did not reappear. "Watch out!" came the high, scratchy voice of Pingu the Jester. "Get off me, you dog!" "Fairy," sounded the basso voice of the king's chiefest counselor. That's basso voice there. "If only you had as much wit as you have a boy." The backup lights buzzed and flickered and came on. The sky, storybook blue, peered through the castle window, and the ladies in waiting picked themselves up off the floor and righted their chairs. The king was rubbing his hip. "Are you all right, child?" "I suppose so," said Sylvie. "One of these days we'll get a real reader." She gave him a doubtful look. "We used to have them. Lots of them," he said. "Father, we never had lots of readers. We had good ones. They paid attention." Sylvie mumbled something. "What was that, dear?" "Nothing. Don't say that. This is a book. You have to say everything." "I said maybe they found something better to do than read our silly story." Queen Emmeline had been gazing critically in a mirror, poking at her ruined hairdo. "Sylvie," she said in her warning voice. "Never mind," said the king. "She knows it isn't true. The sun shines. Readers read." Sylvie had heard all that before. It didn't make her feel any better. "We have a big responsibility," the king went on. "I know. If it weren't for us, I know." The princess smoothed the folds of her skirt and started toward the end of the page. "I think I'll take a nap if nobody minds." Queen Emmeline glanced up to her husband and laid her hand on his arm as Sylvie disappeared in the direction of page 6. She found a comfy spot on the left-hand margin beside the 7th paragraph and rested her head on grandiloquent, the largest adjective in sight. As her head sank into the stuffing, the earlier thought returned. What if readers did really have other lives that had nothing to do with her own world? The idea went against everything she'd been taught. Sun shines, readers read. She nestled down and yawned. Soon her breathing softened. She drifted into a dream about chapter 4, in which she set on her quest to regain the stolen treasure. As always, the dream went pretty much the same way the story was written. Following the thief's trail, she rode her donkey into the forest. In a clearing, she came across a great tortoise 10 feet across, which local peasant boys had somehow overturned and left to die. Dark birds stared down from the trees. Sylvie tried to help, but the tortoise was too heavy. She used a long pole as a lever and tied a length of rope to her donkey. With her pushing and the donkey tugging, the tortoise finally thumped over onto its feet. It looked at her for several long seconds, its great reptilian eyes, then disappeared in the thick. Sylvie traveled on. In the afternoon heat, she heard a high, clicking sound and the beating of wings. Ahead, in a thorn bush, a large, snowy owl struggled. The more desperately it beat its wings, the deeper the thorns pierced its body. Bright red lines worked their way down the white feathers. Then Sylvie realized, as she always realized at this point in the story, that the bird's eyes were white too. It was blind. "Shh," Sylvie said, in a soft voice. "Hush now." The owl grew calmer, and Sylvie was able to stroke its back. She held the quivering bird and gently pulled away the thorns. With a cry, the owl exploded into the air, circled her once, flew north. At last, her petticoats hopelessly dusty, Sylvie arrived at the eclipse, overlooking the Mere of Vermont. The waters of the Mere were usually calm, but now something was churning up the waves close to the shore. An enormous fish of some kind, she thought, trapped by the receding tide. She hurried down to the water. There, fish," she said, extending her hand over the thrashing waves. "If you will calm down, I will help you." She reached below the surface and felt the scaly back of a great sea creature. She waded in, stroking the fish all the while. It blended so perfectly with the water it seemed invisible. "Come," she said. She bumped into the dorsal fin and pulled on it, guiding the fish to a place where it could wriggle over a sandbar and escape. "Now!" she cried. The creature heaved itself up, and Sylvie pushed with all her strength, while sand flew everywhere. In that moment, catching the last sunlight, the fish's sand-covered body was briefly visible. "Why, you're as big as a drawing-room!" Sylvie gasped, and it slammed back into the water and was gone. She watched the flashing waves grow brighter and brighter till she had to shield her eyes. The distant cliffs were turning transparent. What was happening? Then came the sound of screaming birds and a low grumbling. "Book open! Book open!" Sylvie woke from her dream in a panic. The page was flooded with light. She started running, already late. Her face was peering down into the royal chamber, where the king was chewing on the end of his mustache and looking around anxiously. "Father, I cannot marry Prince Wiggloloff," Sylvie gasped as she raced out onto the page. "Not marry Wiggloloff?" King Walter beamed, relieved to see her back in place. Then he caught himself in harumphed. "For heaven's sake, child, he's handsome, rich." Sylvie had to lean against the wall to catch her breath. Her hand rested on a suit of armor. "Kind, brave, yes, I—" The armor tried to scrape along the wall. "Yes, I—" She made a grab for it and missed. "No!" she cried, as the armor, with a stupendous crash, landed on the stone floor. "No, no!" One of the ladies in waiting fainted away. Somewhere someone started giggling. He has, started the king. He cast a worried glance at the large woman lying on the floor. The giggling grew louder. "Everything, yes, I know," Sylvie said. "So do I." "And so do I," her father exclaimed. "Of course you do," cried Sylvie. "You're the king." "Where am I?" The lady in waiting, a round woman in a bulging ball gown, was struggling onto her elbow. Pingree the jester hid his face in his pointed hat. "And you're the princess," shouted the king to Sylvie, put a hand to his brow. "What am I saying?" The laughter grew louder. Sylvie glanced up, just for a second, saw a huge face in the sky. A girl, she realized, one she hadn't seen before. "Ah ha ha!" the girl boomed out, gripping the sides of the book till the castle shook. The laughter died away. The new reader had turned the page and found 4 and 5 stuck together. Sylvie forgot the #1 rule of all storybook collectors: never look at the reader. It was a rule she had broken before, but this time she just stared up at the reader, a plain-looking girl, a bit younger than herself, with short brown curls and a mouth too white for her face. She was prying the pages apart. "That Ricky!" the girl cried. She closed the book and left the courtiers in darkness. "Oh!" King Walter sighed in despair. "Disaster!" the jester groaned, flicking dust from his jingling cap. "She may come back," said the queen. Sylvia and her father helped pull the lady in waiting to her feet as the backup light sputtered and blinked on. No one spoke or even looked at each other. 2 disappointments in one day. After years of sitting on an undusted shelf, it was too much. That's the end. Chapter 1. If you guys want me to keep reading this and possibly suggest something else I could put in a video like this, please let me know in the comments below. I hope to be making more regular videos, though I can't promise because I never know if I'm going to get sick again. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's coming to an end soon.